All right, guys, we're back in Harlem. Another part of, all right, almost there. Okay, we're back in Harlem. We're with our good friend Maddy and Jeff and their kids, and we're gonna do a little ride around. And you guys might know Maddy before, and actually Maddy and Jeff, we had some, I think you guys had costumes on that day. I don't know.
We
I don't know
did.
if both of you had costumes on, but got some bottles clanking. You know, just sounds of New York. It's all good. I'm excited to go for a ride and just chat. And we got one passenger coming along, usually two passengers in here.
Soon to be three.
We got one that's soon to be. We could do the big reveal here. I don't know if she's allowed to be on camera or
She's
not.
allowed. Oh, totally.
We get her consent, okay. Yeah, we're just gonna go for a ride, talk about what it's like riding around the city and what that experience is like. And we're gonna be set up in this bike. Tara, who's behind the camera, I'll give you her little shot real quick. Tara is gonna be sitting up front here in this confined space. He's a real champ. All right, guys. Jeff, see you later. We'll take good care of your family. We're gonna figure it out as we go, you know?
Sounds good. You like their cool bike?
Keep it serendipitous.
You like our bike song?
Yeah. So apparently Harlem is the new hot spot. We got all sorts of people that I didn't actually know everybody's like in Harlem, but now I'm learning everybody's in Harlem.
We're all in Harlem.
Any of you guys in Harlem? Shout out to Harlem.
Gotta love Harlem. So here, I'm gonna take you guys down this way. You can see it's got some of the distinctive Harlem brownstones.
Getting a little tour. Maddy, I gotta say, you handle that thing with authority.
Thank you. I love this bike.
You know, we've just been experimenting with this new format of filming and just kind of having these rolling interviews. And the overall idea, what I've been thinking a lot about lately is it's just overall like how biking, you know, connects us to the community and like connects us maybe with ourselves. And it's something important that I hadn't really thought about so much. I mean, thinking about that, even taking it deeper, thinking about it from a different perspective, do you feel like the bike perhaps like connects you with your kids on a different level?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. I think there's something unique about the front loader as well, is where I can actually talk to them while I'm biking or explain things to them or point things out and see their reactions, and I can get their real-time feedback so they can engage with me as well, and I can hear their conversation, and that's really nice.
I guess just like thinking of like comparing and contrasting like different modes of transportation, what the experience is like with the kids here. And Sloan, what's your preferred mode of travel, huh? You like riding in the bike?
She always wants to go on the bike.
And you guys are actually car free.
We're totally car free. We used to have a car way
Yeah.
back when.
Yeah.
And then we got rid of our car. Parking is a nightmare in the city, and we didn't want to pay for it. And when you're in New York City, you really don't need to own a car.
Right, there's kind of few instances where it actually is feasible. Not to say that it's never feasible. I mean, I think that there are times that it could be.
Back to your point, yes, I think the bike definitely connects me to my kids better, connects me to the community better. I get a lot here in the city. And like they've recently repaved the roads. We can't get a break.
It makes for interesting audio here. You get the
Oh my God.
we got a Sharrow. Yeah, we were talking about different types of bike infrastructure. These ones are a little lame. This is called a Sharrow, where it's like kind of like a shared lane, just like telling drivers that bikes can ride in the lane. Not necessarily helping all that much.
No, the drivers don't pay attention to the Sharrows.
Yeah.
It's really, you just have to be a vigilant biker when you're here in the city. But I think there are certain neighborhoods where the drivers are a little bit more attentive. And certainly there are neighborhoods where the bike infrastructure is much stronger. It's not that strong up here.
You know, it's interesting, speaking about that, in New York City, it's primarily run by community boards, right? And I think a lot of times DOT, they go to the community board and they say, hey, I want to put in these bike lanes, and they try to get support from the community boards before putting the infrastructure in. They can do it without, but it's just they feel like it's better if they have the support. So generally what happens is they end up putting the infrastructure in the places they have an easier time getting support from the community. People talk about the disparities between different communities, and they say, oh, well, we're not getting enough resources and this and that, but ends up being the community boards is one of the bigger limiting factors, at least to my understanding. But I think that that's shifting more and more. And one of the bigger driving factors there is Citibike, actually.
I would agree. And I think the pandemic has actually done wonders for the biking.
Yeah. There's not as much protected bike infrastructure as other places in the city, but you still feel relatively comfortable riding. I guess part of it probably is the speed limit. Is that something that you feel like is helpful? I mean, not that everybody obeys the speed limit, but
I don't know that people really adhere to the speed limit. I think what makes me feel comfortable is honestly is the size of this bike.
Yes.
It's a huge bike. People see it, even though it's all in black. It's a really big piece of equipment. And so people are concerned about also scratching their car, right? And hurting their cars. So, I'm like, this bike will do damage if you hit it. I mean, obviously there's more important things at hand. What we do have is we have like more narrow roads.
Yes.
And so certainly like because we have more narrow roads and we have the speed limits, the cars do go slower.
You gotta really like have the confidence though, right? And like know how to handle yourself. Like I think part of it sometimes you gotta say like, I have a spot here. I belong here. And if you can do that effectively, you know how to actually bike safely in most environments.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And sometimes it takes taking the lane, for example, right? Is a big deal to say like, hey, I know you want to pass me, but there's not enough space for you to pass me, so I'm not going to give you the indication that it could be okay to pass me. So I'm going to take this lane and stay here.
And making eye contact with drivers. Like for those who are going to be prospective drivers of this bike, when they see that there are kids, you'll see them go slow, or you'll see them like, let me take over the lane without any issue. And that's really helpful. And it's really, but of course, my husband always says, like, we shouldn't be relying on, the generosity of drivers.
Right.
We should just have better infrastructure where I don't feel that I'm at their whims.
For sure. I know there's a lot of times discussion about like bike infrastructure as a conduit for more like gentrification and that sort of thing. But do you find that, in this community that's pretty diverse, that like most people are like using it, or do you feel like it's more of like the new inhabitants that are using it?
No, I think there's a lot of community members who've been long living here and do use it for sure. And now that you have a mix of racial ethnic backgrounds and income diversity, you do see all different people using it. But you definitely see, I'd say, people who have been living here for a long time have used it.
Yeah.
I don't often see cargo bikes, of course. I mean, I see a few. That's obviously my mission my change
for
mission.
Sure. It totally changes. Like just this block having this, 2 cargo bikes, it just changes the whole vibe in the environment. I think like people are just generally gonna be more apt to maybe put a smile on their face. Like, and I don't know if in some element it's seeing something new. I mean, that's something that New York overall, like people are generally like supportive of that sort of
100%.
thing. We need to always be creative and thinking of new ideas because.
For sure. I get a lot of engagement with people around me because they don't see this particular bike, right? They do see the long tails, those are very common. But with this particular bike, I get so much engagement, questions. What do you put in that thing? What do you use it for? Is it electric? Where do you park it? Also, people always ask how much it costs. And because it's just it's like a conversation piece because it's so unusual.
So do you feel like you engage a lot more with the community as a result of being on the bike, in part because of the uniqueness of the bike? It was not as unique. Do you feel like you still would have a higher propensity to have an engagement with the community, a connection with the community? Because that's something I've been looking at and thinking about a lot lately.
I think any time where you're more out in the open.
Right,
and
being vulnerable, right?
Exactly. Then you are going to engage with people because we have the density of people. We really have a huge number of people who are walking and crossing the street. You get people who are also on bikes. Anytime we're at stoplights, I'm usually answering questions about the bike. And I think even if it wasn't as unique as it is, I still think that you still have that opportunity where you might not have that opportunity before, right? Because in the subway, nobody talks to each other, as you know.
Yeah.
In cars, you're definitely not talking to anybody.
So what is that about? What's your suspicion? Have you ever thought about that?
Why nobody talks?
Why does nobody talk to each other on the subway?
I feel like it's like this kind of mind your own business. Like,
everybody is just like go, go, go in New York City, and they don't have time for that. And maybe if you get involved in the conversation, it might like slow you down.
You're kind of the weirdo.
Or you don't have a.
I mean,
maybe it's also like, hey, the city's so loud. We're in the subway, and it's just like we have an opportunity for quiet time.
Could be that too. So we used to live right across the street from Central Park, and we had a dog, and so we used to go into Central Park multiple times a day, every day.
Yeah.
And so we also met a bunch of families. Once you have kids, that's kind of how you meet people.
Sure.
So we know a lot of families who hang out in the park.
Okay, so naturally you meet people with kids.
Yeah.
Is there any different, because again, just thinking of this theme of connection, I don't want to over push it, but is there any difference between, being on a bike and other, I guess walking you still could connect with families too, but I guess if it's something unique,
Yes.
that's a difference, right?
Yes.
Some sort of talking point.
I think now that we're obsessed with bikes, which we are obsessed with bikes, anyone we see that has like an interesting electric bike will usually say something, whether they have family or kids or not. If they have kids, it's like the golden ticket. Then I'm just like, be my friend, join my Facebook group, follow me on Instagram.
What's our next play date?
Exactly. Let's meet up. Let's go.
Oh, she's ready for the play date.
You ready for some play dates? I mean, that's how we met another couple really good friends with now, is basically we were on Governor's Island and we saw another family that had the Babbo, the two-wheel Babbo. And he went up to them and he was like, we need to talk to you because you have this electric cargo bike. And then they went to your store and bought an Urban Arrow.
It's not so commonplace, but eventually maybe it will become more commonplace.
I hope so. We've definitely converted a bunch of, I don't want to take full credit for it, but we definitely have inspired some families to get bikes, whether it's a front loader or rear loader.
Are you asking for the commission check right now?
I mean, hey.
Hey.
You want to hire me? Not opposed to it. But no, but like they ended up getting rear loaders that work better for their lifestyle. And so, but you can, once you start being the example and saying, hey, I can do this in New York City.
Normalizing it.
Exactly.
I met a young mother in LA, and in LA it's even less commonplace and infrastructure is even less common. And she was like, I just need somebody to connect with. I could talk to them about, the people that tell me that I'm crazy.
For sure.
I'm sure somebody's going to say something in the YouTube comments that you're crazy or we're crazy or whatever.
Sure.
Everything started as a crazy idea.
Yeah.
I mean, when the automobile was first introduced, everybody said they were crazy and get them off the road because we got horses running here.
It's really unlocked the city for us in so many ways. It's reclaimed so much of my time that was spent just waiting for the subway, waiting for the bus. Unreliable public city transit is really frustrating. And as a mom of 3 kids, I'm like running all over the place like a chicken with my head cut off. And so I'm trying to make it the most efficient I can. And if you look at other countries like the Netherlands, which is our happy place, thank you. We get that a lot.
So that's so cool.
They're a highly functioning society that almost everybody's on bikes.
People are generally a lot happier, right?
Yeah. So Central Park it used to have cars. And then in the last however many years, they basically stopped allowing cars and made it into a bike and running only. And so the lights, they basically retrofitted a street to accommodate for pedestrians and bikes. So they didn't remove any of the lights, basically. And so you have to adhere to them if there are pedestrians or people waiting to cross.
Got it.
Otherwise, you're free to go as you like. But we do this loop a lot because it's a very, very well protected bike lane, obviously. And I mean, it's so fun to see, what everybody's up to and people watching. I think the kids get a lot of people watching from the bike.
Yeah.
Right? So they see all kinds of stuff.
Stimulating, right?
Very much so.
Okay, so they're not riding, but at the end of the day, being on the bike, are they tired?
I would say yes. If you've seen my Instagram account, then you see at least every third picture is her sleeping.
That's an interesting thing, though, thinking about it, right? Where it's like they're not riding themselves, but just being in the bike, they are somewhat part of the activity,
For sure. Mentally
maybe they would have the same experience in a car. I don't know. Mine
tend to vomit in the car.
That's very interesting.
They vomit in the car. This one especially.
Tell me more about this. I'm sure you guys want to know more about this.
You guys want to hear about kids yakking in the car. So this one, who's been in a car maybe a half dozen times total in her life, typically throws up within 45 minutes every single time. In the bike, she has never thrown up and always is very relaxed and sleeps.
What's that about, Sloan?
Sloan, why are you throwing up?
It's just cars make me sick, Mommy.
You motion sickness too? Yeah. I think most people who have not biked in the city are very intimidated by the idea of biking with their kids in New York City traffic. I always promote the buddy system. Get a friend who has been biking who has a gigantic cargo bike or a Citibike or whatever,
Right.
and have them take you around and let them show you the nuances of biking in New York City. And then I think once you get over that initial fear of, being annihilated by the taxi cabs, and it's not actually going to happen, then
Right.
I think you begin to build that confidence, and then you can bike ride, and it really does unlock the city in really profound ways. And I think as soon as you start to get more families and people out on this bike, then you begin to, as you said before, have more of a user base to put pressure on the community boards to begin changing infrastructure, right? This is sort of how change happens in a place like ours.
Well, that's the thing people always talk about, right? With the infrastructure, it's kind of the chicken or the egg thing. But it really is this, like, if you build it, they will come. Like, oh, people don't ride bikes over here. They don't ride bikes because there's no place to ride.
Right. And people think it's crazy because
Right.
it's so scary. And it doesn't have to be scary, especially if we have the right infrastructure. And, unfortunately, I don't think New York City responds as quickly or as efficiently as we would like. And so we just need to get more riders out there who can help be these trailblazers and pioneers.
Advocating for that is a really big deal. I'm learning more and more about it. It's not the easiest thing. Like, how do you navigate the political landscape of trying to advocate for bike infrastructure? In New York City, oftentimes it's showing up at community board meetings. I think that that's something that definitely can be helpful. I think for one, just being a presence in the street, that alone can be a strong
right here.
factor for
Totally.
sure.
Hi.
Do you like the horse?
You like that? Isn't that cool? The mounted police, those are pretty awesome. I can't stress enough, the bike really can change how you experience New York City, specifically New York City too. We have a great system for public transit, and it does go really far. It's notoriously unreliable and very late and slow and
Yeah.
I love being able to take the subway, but it's gross. Which elevator is working, which one isn't working? Like, especially as a mom with kids,
Right, you got to take a stroller, all this sort of stuff.
it's a disaster, right? It's just a hassle. You basically become online with ADA compliant, right? Because if you've got a heavy stroller, you're not really, yes,
Right.
You'll carry it up and down subway stairs, which most people do, but it's really annoying. And if I'm alone, then I'm sort of reliant on the generosity of strangers to help me, or if I'm willing to ask somebody, which, there's been a few times when I've had to, but with a bike like this, you can actually, I found there's a particular stroller that folds and fits right into the bucket, which is really neat. And so when we install the Maxi Cozy adapters, I'll just be able to bring my carriers. I have a new baby. I'm 8 weeks postpartum, 8-week-old baby.
Yeah.
Who's not with us today because we have to wait for our Maxi Cozy adapters.
And just in case any of you ladies are watching there, you want to know how to look good right after you're pregnant. This is it right here.
I'll tell you, the bike helps a lot with that too. and that's another thing, right? Is I biked throughout my entire pregnancy, which is not very done here, or it's sort of not really talked about. I didn't know very many people who biked while pregnant, and the few people I did know, they usually got comments. You can bike pregnant, and you can do it safely, and
That there could be some benefits to that as well.
yeah, for sure.
I see we're going over some bumps also. I guess if you actually wanted to induce labor, it might be helpful for that too. No?
Totally. I think I biked. I know a lot of moms who biked up until their water broke, basically.
Wow.
I biked up until 37 weeks.
So actually, interesting point to bring up here, because in the Netherlands, right, people bike home from the hospital at times. Like, I don't know if the mom always does, but they bike the baby home from the hospital. And technically in New York, I think it's not actually allowed, like under a year, right? Is that the rule?
So if I bike with Marlo, I'll be practicing some civil disobedience.
Okay.
For sure. But she would be in a car seat strapped in, and so
that's another one of those things of who makes a determination of when we're safe, and how much responsibility do we have on an individual basis to make the determination of what's safe and what's not safe for ourselves. You could argue that there's many other modes of transportation that could be
far more dangerous. I would argue that even you're more likely to get into a car crash than you are a bike crash with an infant. Yet babies drive home in the States, right? This bike is basically the family minivan of the Netherlands. Everybody has this bike. And that's how we discovered it, is we met up with some friends who my husband knew from college who had an Urban Arrow. So we often do home swaps when we travel. It's one of our preferred ways of travel. And the house we had swapped with had a like classic wooden box seats, right? Like the non-electric assist, wooden box, you know. I couldn't ride it. I did not ride it at all. Jeff was the hero here doing these like 2-hour rides with the non-electric box seats all over the Netherlands. It was amazing. We were like, oh, before we leave, we should at least just try riding an Urban Arrow. And so our friend let us test hers, and I'm pretty sure I fell over once, maybe twice, and then I got the hang of it, and I was like, this thing is so cool. And yeah, right. You know, another thing to say about the bike is it's good for short people. I'm 5 feet.
It's a big deal. So wait, how tall are you?
I'm 5 feet.
5 foot, flat.
Flat.
What are some of the crazier experiences that you've had on the bike?
So, I mean, I had this one great story, which I shared with you a little bit earlier, where I was riding home with my kids. This guy started yelling at me from his car, not like the kind like get out of the way, which I get a lot of that too, or oh my God, that's so cute, I get a lot of that too. But this guy was yelling at me that he had a bike for me. And it took a second.
Like, hey lady, I got a bike for you.
Free bike. And I was like, what? And I was like, free bike. And this was I think this was like in the pandemic where bikes were really hard to come by.
Right.
Especially for kids. And so I pulled the bike around. I was like, this is a New York moment. I don't know what I'm gonna find here when I stop and turn around.
Yeah.
And this guy pulled out from his trunk.
Hopefully it's not one of those like free candy scenarios.
I know. I was like, this could go one of many ways. I wasn't sure. But I was like, hey, I wouldn't be a New Yorker if I didn't stop and find out what was going on. I pulled over, and the guy, sure enough, from his trunk gave me a bicycle that was the perfect size for my son.
Wow. Who
did not have a bicycle and didn't know how to ride a bike. Still sort of like learning, but that's neither here nor there. But we didn't have a bike. You know, I carried it home on the front of my Urban Arrow here, which I have a picture of it on my Instagram.
Wow.
And then later, just recently, the person found me on Instagram and was like, hey, how'd that bike work out? And I was like, that is such a small world story. You know, it was just riding by in Harlem, right? He just sort of gave me this bike.
Crazy stuff. I mean, what, 18 million people? How many people in New York City right now?
Wait, can you try and open it? I got at least one. I have to have at least one hand on the bicycle.
Let's see the skill development here. Can you do it? I think you
can
do it.
Let's you do it. If not, I can help you.
What do we got in there? Fruit snacks?
It's worth it, girlfriend.
All right, we might have to take a pit stop. Oh, we're showing some real mommy skills right here. This is pro level stuff.
This is the benefit of having the kids in the front.
That's good. You're pretty balanced and comfortable on that thing.
This is the first bike I've ever owned, but I did not ride bikes until I was a teenager, and when I rode them badly. I was not a good biker. And when I first got this bike, I was not a good biker on this bike either. But then I think it's just about practicing. So that's all I'm saying, is that the moral of this story is that you can have basically zero experience and ride a bike like this, like I did. And it's okay to fall. Like, it's totally okay. On my maiden voyage, I got out of your shop and made it across the street and tipped over completely. And I think
she didn't make an insurance claim. Don't get any ideas, folks.
One of your great
team
members came running out being like, are you okay? And I was like, I'm gonna do it. I've got to get this bike home.
My pride is a little hurt, but I'm okay.
And I mean, I think one of the kids was crying, but that's okay. So here's something like interesting. So you can see a lot of the cars, they're probably all just moving around.
Yeah.
And you do get a lot of that. Like, as aggressive as the drivers are, you also get a lot of people moving around you and just making. And
bikes are becoming more and more commonplace. So you're like, okay, yeah, this is something that we gotta do. So how long have you guys been in this area for now?
Long time. I mean, ever since Jeff and I have been together.
Okay.
He went to school at Columbia and sort of lived in the neighborhood. Yeah. And then stayed in the neighborhood, and then we got together 15 years ago, roughly. And yeah, I mean, we love it. Harlem's a great place, great neighborhood.
And before New York, have you guys always been in New York, or?
No, I actually spent a year in China. I lived in China for a while.
Wow.
Working. I was in Long Island and then Philadelphia for school, and then I'm from the Midwest originally.
Okay.
Jeff is from Westchester, so he's sort of always been in New York.
At what point are you a New Yorker?
So I feel like, and this could just be my anecdotal response to that, is when you feel like you know New York better than you know your hometown. I don't remember my hometown
Yeah.
at all.
Yeah.
But I feel like I could tell you all about New York City at this point. So I identify as a New Yorker now,
Yeah.
for sure.
I love it. I like that. What do you guys think about that? I'm interested to know. For myself, I grew up on Long Island. I lived in Brooklyn for several years, but the city seems to have this infectious hold on me. I moved to California for a couple years, and nothing like the energy of New York, though.
For sure.
And the way you could take it in on a bike too, it's just, or even walking too. Honestly, you could. I mean, I guess you can't take it in as quickly, but it's a similar sort of thing.
Totally. There's a vibrancy that's unparalleled, I'd argue. Wait, do you identify as a New Yorker?
Yes, I would say New York has my heart. I think that's the reason why I would say that I'm a New Yorker, because I feel connected to New York. New York is where my people are, and I guess it's partly just because there's so many different people in New York.
And when I go up to the Bronx Zoo, which I bike to the Bronx Zoo, you go up this way.
How's the bike parking accommodations there?
At the zoo, you park right in front.
Yeah.
There's like a bike route, and I literally take over the entire bike route, but that's neither here nor
And
there.
it's probably there's like an attendant over there somewhere, so it's a reasonable level of security. We were speaking about this before, bike parking. Like, where do you put this thing?
So that's classified.
Well, yeah, let's not tell the specifics.
But what I will do is I will say that I do street park this baby. It does camouflage under motorcycle covers.
Yeah.
And so that's another question I get all the time. It's like, where am I going to put this thing? And I'm like, you can street park it, insure it, lock it,
Yeah.
and then do like what we call kind of a contextual assimilation. But the bike of this size is akin to one of the scooters and the Vespas, and those are all street parked. You don't put those in a bike room or anything.
But really, the bottom line is we need more bike parking.
For sure.
I think you're pretty brave with your bike. I think a lot of people are not. I think it prohibits a lot of people from riding their bikes around the city.
For sure. I mean, maybe they're lucky. People can be lucky to get have a bike room in their place. And we actually do have a bike room in our apartment complex, but we can't get this bike in the bike room. It's a little too big. There's not enough space. But when I can finally convince Jeff to get a bike, maybe we'll get a bike we can park in the bike room, like a turn or something.
Yeah.
But he loves Citibike, which is great, right? I think again to the point, Citibike's done wonders for transforming regular New Yorkers into bikers, but not like cyclists, but like bikers, commuters, right? And so I think we forget that there are gradations of biking people, right? There's the people who are biking for sport. There's the people who are biking, as their job. Then there's the parents who are biking and the commuters.
Yeah.
Not everybody is like, a crazy cyclist, right? That's not there. It's like we have a bunch of different types of biking people. And I think Citibike's really done an amazing job of introducing the regular commuting lifestyle.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's a lot of communities that previously were like, oh, we don't want Citibike here. We don't want to lose any parking spaces, this and that. And now they're begging for more. Have you heard that story? I've been hearing that one a lot.
For sure. I mean, and biking is such an affordable way of getting around the city. Cars are expensive. They can be prohibitively expensive for many people.
Yeah.
Bikes aren't. They're not expensive.
Right. Relatively speaking. I mean, that's also a challenge for a lot of people to get over, I think, at times, right? It's just, when you wrap your head around like, hey, Walmart has a bike for $300 or whatever. So this is a good scenario, actually, to some extent, where it's like, oh, yeah, sure, this car wants to pass, and there might be aggressive, whatever.
But they're just zooming up to a red light here.
They don't realize what's
coming
really
up right
going on.
behind,
We're getting better.
We're getting better.
We're getting better at it. I think Citibike's also helping with that.
I think so too.
Shout out to Citibike, all right?
That's right. Citibike, you've done wonders.
But on that note, Maddy, this was awesome.
That's great. Thank you so much for inviting me.
I'm hoping that maybe we can make this somewhat of a regular thing. I don't know, on some sort of rolling basis. You've always got interesting things to say. I mean, one thing I gotta say, if you're on Instagram, gotta follow this lady.
Follow me on Instagram. That's right.
cargobikemomma. People say somebody's like an agent of change. I would crown you like a queen of change in the city. That's a pretty big deal.
I feel very passionately about the cargo bike lifestyle, especially for families. I want to be a change agent.
Yeah.
For sure. And I think we've to some extent by doing Instagram and just like making my presence known, it can happen, you know, and you can inspire other people to go and take that plunge. So thank you.
So other people should be sharing their experiences.
Yes,
And
if
we
you're
should
a
make
cargo
more
bike-
of these stories.
I
too,
would love
maybe.
it. You know, absolutely.
And eat applesauce.
That's right. That's right. So no, it's been great. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah.
I've like always wanted to be on one of your
Just
your YouTube.
you should have asked. I was
I know
like,
Jeff was
I
like, you
had
should
no
just
idea.
tell him, and I was like, I
had-
can't. I have to be invited. I can't.
I had no idea. The niceties kind of got in the way here. We're New Yorkers. We're usually direct.
But that's true.
This
But
is your
this
Midwesterner
is
kind of coming
I
out
was just gonna
here.
say it's my Midwesterner.
It's still there. You can't take it out of her. You know.
It's true.
Had a great time. Yeah. I think we're gonna
Awesome.
cut it there. So
That sounds
hopefully
good.
you guys enjoyed.
Thanks for-
Let me
yeah.
know if you want to see more of these. Let me know what worked for you, didn't work for you. Hopefully next time, more cameras. They're
More
coming.
cameras.
More views, more angles. We'll get there. So,
Thank you, Tara.
have fun, ride a bike. It's cool. Peace.